I was on an important call with Japanese partners when I received a dismissal letter. No explanations, just restructuring. Instead of panicking, I calmly sent the documents and then activated my hidden plan. I wasn't just an employee. I was the architect of the company's entire digital system. I launched a silent attack that paralyzed their infrastructure, leaving them powerless. The former CEO who fired me lost everything, while I took control of key contracts and built my own business. This wasn't revenge. It was a long-awaited revolution where I finally became the one holding the power. Let me start from the beginning. I was in the middle of a call with our partners in Japan, tying up the final details of a deal I'd been nursing along for 10 months, the kind of win that could have practically carried our entire Q4, when my email pinged. I was grinning, genuinely foolishly, until my eyes caught the subject line. Urgent role termination notification. First, I didn't even click it. I figured it had to be some phishing attempt, a glitch, or maybe a very poorly timed April Fool's prank in the middle of August. On the other end of the call, the Tokyo rep kept speaking in that clipped, perfectly polite English, and I just kept nodding while that email sat there like a quiet little knife waiting for the right moment to twist. I finally hit mute, opened it, and there it was, 2 lines from our COO Eddie Morgan. Due to structural realignment, your role is now redundant. Please clear your desk by 4:30 p.m. today. Your final paycheck will be deposited within the next 2 business weeks. I stared at the screen and felt something under my skin go icy. Not anger, not sadness, just a deep, eerie stillness, the kind that comes seconds before a thunderclap. I unmuted, kept my voice steady, and said, "We'll move forward with Tokyo's terms. I'll send the paperwork by end of day." I hung up knowing they'd never see that paperwork. I walked to the ladies' room, locked the door, and looked in the mirror. Lipstick flawless, blouse still crisp from the morning steam, my own expression giving away nothing. No tears, no screaming, just a decision. I pulled out my phone, opened an encrypted folder labeled Guardian Protocol, and tapped. A little progress will spun. No alarms, no explosions, just a quiet, unstoppable shutdown creeping through everything they thought they owned. Back in my office, I packed deliberately, taking only what mattered. My grandfather's 1925 fountain pen, my old university ID, the stone chess pawn paperweight, and the framed photo of my son, grown now, stationed overseas, still thinking his mom was just an Excellentis exec. I left behind the plaques, all 12 Excellence in Strategy awards, and the crystal cube etched with loyalty as leadership, because loyalty was no longer my brand. One by one I saw the signs. The big dashboard on floor 5 flickered out, the analytics war room on floor 7 went dark, procurement froze, the internal comm system kicked everyone out, Slack, Google Drive, SAP dead. Even the fancy espresso machine in the exec lounge blinked its little red light and gave up. I could have left right then, but I stayed long enough to watch it all unravel. That's when Eddie came barreling in, loafers slapping against the floor, looking like a lost kid at Costco. He stopped short when he saw me placing the pawn in my bag. "What the hell did you do?" he snapped, voice cracking like a warped vinyl. I met his eyes. "You called me redundant, so I removed what was redundant." He leaned in, hissing, "You think this is funny?" and slammed a hand on my desk. I rose slowly and he actually took a step back. "No, Eddie," I said. "I think it's poetic." I walked past him. His phone rang mid-step. "Yes, I'm aware." "No, I don't know how to fix it," he muttered, already forgetting I existed. He'd remember soon enough, because what none of them realized, not one, was that I hadn't just built the company's digital backbone. I owned it. And hidden deep in the code was a single trigger, one clause that could turn their whole empire into glass. By the time I hit the parking garage, security had been mobilized like I was some kind of terrorist. 2 baby-faced guards, probably still in high school when I started here, tried to block me by the stairwell. One reached for my arm, all polite. "Ma'am, we've been asked to escort you back upstairs." I cut in. "No, you've been told to stall me," which means they're upstairs scrambling, and no one knows which button to push. He blinked. "Are you threatening the company?" I gave a slow smile. "No. I already did." Behind me an elevator dinged, still operational for now, but I took the stairs out of principle. At my car, my phone lit up. 48 missed calls, 5 from legal, only 1 from Eddie's personal cell, and just 1 from Tokyo's assistant already asking why the server handshake had dropped mid-deal. Perfect. Let the panic spread. As I drove out, I passed a cluster of frantic execs on the sidewalk, suit jackets open, phones glued to ears, stress radiating like pollen during hay fever season. None of them looked at me, except Sophie, my old assistant, 27, sharp, underpaid, and quicker with code than anyone realized. She stood there clutching her tablet like a lifeline. Our eyes met, and I gave her the smallest nod. She didn't smile, didn't look away either, because Sophie didn't know all of it, but she knew enough to suspect that the heart of this company wasn't corporate at all. It was me. I drove straight to the waterfront, the one place that's always been my refuge. There's an old, weather-beaten bench tucked under a fading maple tree, half in shadow from the abandoned pier, still Nathaned with graffiti from when this town used to believe in its own future. From there I could watch the first ripples hit. It started small. A single investor tweet. Sudden outage at Corp, internal breach. Then a Reddit thread popped up. Anyone else's company-wide access just vanish? Dev servers dead. Error code 904. Then Eddie's panicked attempt at damage control on LinkedIn. We're undergoing a scheduled systems review. Please bear with us. Scheduled, my ass. I opened my laptop, unlocked the encrypted drive, and pulled up my diagnostic dashboard, watching in real time as the dominoes fell. Central file system offline, CRM core corrupted, HR portal rerouted to an offline mirror, financial servers unresponsive. Red dots began to blink one after another, like some upside-down constellation spelling out you really shouldn't have screwed with the architect. That's when my phone lit up again, but not with calls from the company. These were older contacts, the kind of numbers you don't find in any corporate gerund. One rang, I answered. A woman's voice, sharp German accent like polished steel. You pulled it. I said. I did. She asked if it was contained. Yes. For now. A pause. You understand the implications if they trace it. I almost laughed. I wrote the protocol. They won't. Another hesitation. Still prepare for extraction. If legal routes fail, they'll go personal. I stared out over the water. They already did, I said, and hung up. Because this wasn't just a firing, it wasn't even just betrayal. Eddie had wandered straight into a hornet's nest without bothering to read the warning sign. And now he wasn't dealing with a bitter ex-employee. He was dealing with a woman who never needed to ask for power, because she'd been holding it all along. Hidden, layered, buried deep, and now unleashed. The breach didn't begin with the servers. It started 2 years ago. The day Eddie got the COO title and decided his reflection mattered more than his foundation. He walked in smelling of smug cologne and buzzwords about leaning out legacy roles and maximizing shareholder trust through operational refinement. Translation: he didn't like women over 40 making more money than him, and I made a hell of a lot more. He didn't fire me outright. He chipped away instead. Cut my team budget, reshuffled reporting lines, replaced my second-in-command with some kid who thought cybersecurity meant changing your Gmail password once a year. Subtle sabotage. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. But I'd seen this game before. Nathan Cole, Correvity Systems, 09. Same self-satisfied fraud with perfect teeth and a god complex, who tried to erase me and ended up erased himself. Financially, publicly, and by the end emotionally. He still sends me thank you notes from therapy. So when Eddie started circling, I started sketching. I built a loop. A shadow infrastructure that quietly mirrored every department's critical systems, but answered to me alone. Think skeleton key meets ghost network. Invisible, undetectable, capable of replacing the entire system heartbeat by heartbeat. And I built it because Eddie wasn't just useless, he was dangerous. One night last October, my home terminal pinged at 2:20 a.m. Unauthorized login attempt on the Salary Vault database. Internal source masked IP, but the VPN trail was weak. Half hidden, routed through his assistant's laptop. The Salary Vault holds far more than pay stubs. It's got equity vesting data, offer histories, severance terms, and enough leverage to ruin people. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I just logged the attempt and upgraded my loop sensors. From that night on, every C-suite keystroke was mirrored, time-stamped, and stored, which is how 3 months later, I found a backroom memo labeled Phase 3, Post-Redundancy Compensation Restructure. 5 names, mine included. All women. All VPs or higher. All over 43. All Nathan for termination with cause to avoid payouts. Suddenly it made sense why he smiled through me at the last board review. Why legal stopped CCing me on compliance briefs, why my wellness budget disappeared while he got a brand new espresso bar installed outside his office. He wasn't just trimming costs, he was staging a quiet purge. So I started planning a louder one, because this wasn't personal vengeance anymore, it was war. And in war you don't brandish your weapons. You bury them, wait, and detonate when everyone's too busy sipping lattes to hear the ticking. 2 hours after I walked out today, Eddie, or maybe some poor IT soul, tried what they probably called a recovery cascade. I sat in the lounge of a 5-star hotel, sipping a drink I'd charged to my still active corporate card. Another oversight, and watched the attempt crumble. The TV over the bar cut from a silent soccer game to a breaking news ticker. Major East Coast tech firm crippled by internal anomaly. The news ticker was already saying operations frozen, sources say. When I took another slow sip of my drink, neat, no ice, and refreshed my diagnostics feed, I could see they'd tried rebooting the core server, which only triggered the recursive loop I'd baked into my mirrored structure. On the surface, everything appeared fixed, but inside it was just a tangled mess of phantom access points, echo data, and sandbox traps. An endless maze where every exit led right back to nowhere. They were chasing ghosts. Then my phone rang, block number, amateur hour. And sure enough, it was Eddie. I answered without speaking, just let him spill. He came in hot, his voice racing. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is corporate sabotage. You're risking lawsuits, prison time. Hell, we can still fix this, Emma. First name like we were pals. I stayed calm. You cleared my desk, I said. Now clear your conscience. He got desperate. I'll pay you personally. Just undo whatever it is you did. I almost laughed. Oh, Eddie, you think this is about money? The pause told me everything. You always thought it was about money, I added. And that's why you'll never understand who you're dealing with. I hung up before he could reply. A second later, a text from Sophie popped up. He's panicking. Just asked IT if a full unplug and blow dry would help. I let out a short, dry chuckle and typed back. Get the mirror drive out. Step 1, shadow wake protocol. You remember the rest. No emojis. No small talk. Sophie wasn't just my former assistant. She was my apprentice, though no one else ever knew it. I trained her quietly, in between board meetings, after hours, during chaos, through layoffs. She was disciplined, meticulous, and she never broke protocol. Most importantly, she knew the exit plan. Because Ravenwake wasn't just about tearing everything down. It was the seed for something new. Hidden behind the loop, behind the kill switch, behind all the smoke and mirrors, I'd been building an inheritance for over a decade. An entire infrastructure disguised under defunct startups and dead domains. Portable, secure, and ready to relaunch under a different banner. Eddie never saw the word Ravenwake in any file, any memo, any log. But Sophie did, because she knew what it meant. That cutting me loose had actually disconnected them from their own backbone. And time was short. Tomorrow the Tokyo contract expired, and I was the only person alive who could renew it. At 9:10 a.m. Tokyo time, 8:10 p.m. My time, I got their encrypted message on the same secondary channel we'd used during political unrest back in 2022. One word, broken. I replied, not broken. Unplugged. Interested. 4 minutes later, they sent back a PDF. A letter of intent addressed directly to me. They didn't care about the logo on the door. They cared about my architecture, my fail-safes, my ability to keep them running through typhoons while everyone else went dark. They wanted to move the whole deal over. No middlemen. No Eddie. No delay. I closed the file and just settled. My hands were steady, but my heart did that old pre-presentation lurch from the days when a single pitch decided whether we made payroll or shut down half a continent. It wasn't relief, it was arrival. Sophie called around 30 minutes later from a burner. Her voice was tight but measured. He's locked himself in the IT vault, she said. Screaming that you've hijacked the soul of the company. Legal's trying to start emergency arbitration, but they can't even open the template servers. I leaned back, smiling. Perfect. Initiate phase 2. She hesitated. Emma. This will burn everything. Internal archives, board files, even my own history. I told her I knew. That it had to be clean. Untouchable. If even one fragment of my code got pulled back, They'd try to claim partial IP and drag me through court until my legacy was just a stack of exhibits labeled A through Z. Phase 2 didn't just torch the bridge, it sank the continent behind it. I heard her breathing hitch as she typed in the last command. Raven Wake sequence auth execute for. Not an explosion but an erasure. My name disappeared from every commit log, every access grant, every plaque, every trace. Even the digital sign outside the innovation lab blinked, stuttered, and reset to unattributed. Inside the building, panic gave way to grief. They weren't just locked out anymore. They'd been amputated. I opened my laptop again, logged into the Ravenwake backend. Clean. Intact. Fully operational. Within an hour, 3 more messages landed in my inbox. One from a Berlin aerotech firm, one from a ScandiPay group, and one from a Washington agency that officially doesn't exist. All with the same question. Are you taking new contracts under the new umbrella? I couldn't help but smile. Umbrella? How poetic. For 20 years I'd been the shield, keeping storms from swallowing fools who couldn't read the weather. Now I was the storm and I'd only just started raining. By midnight, Old Company's homepage had been reduced to a sad static splash screen, plastered with a typo-ridden apology. We are experiencing unprecedented technical issues. Please check back later. The misspelling gave it away. Eddie had typed it himself and he was unraveling. I knew his spiral by heart. The twitch in his right eye, the jaw clench when a question had no answer, and there was no one left to throw under the bus. I'd once saved him mid-conference with a fake technical difficulty and a staged demo. He'd sent me wine like I was a babysitter who'd kept his secrets, but now there was no leash and he was pacing the cage. At 12:20 a.m., a private video message arrived, not a call from his wife. I almost ignored it, but curiosity has always been my fatal flaw. She was sitting in their kitchen, half lit by the glow of the oven clock. No makeup, no facade, just the glossy exhaustion of a woman who'd been living with a man unraveling long before the public saw the cracks. Emma, she said softly, eyes heavy. I don't know what he did, but he keeps saying your name like it's either a curse or a confession. She glanced off camera, then back at me. I know this won't mean anything to you now, but you weren't wrong. About him. About all of it. And that was it, no plea, no defense. Just surrender. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel anything at all. The chessboard had already been burned. No pawns, no kings, only ashes. By morning, more than half my old clients had slipped through back channels, not to ask what happened, but to ask for a seat at my table. Tokyo was signed and sealed under my new LLC, Ironclad Networks. A name trade Nathan months ago, forged in fire. While they labeled me redundant, I'd been preparing succession. Evolution, not survival. Sophie had activated the skeleton crew. 2 ex-data analysts I'd rescued from layoffs, a legal contractor who once sued us and respected me more than her own partners, and a systems architect from Toronto who'd been blacklisted for refusing to sell user data. To the world, we were nobodies. Together, we were untouchable. That same morning, Eddie went live. Sweaty, disheveled, leaning into the boardroom webcam like a villain coming apart in Act 3. There has been an unauthorized breach by a former employee, he announced, and this act will be pursued to the full extent of the law. We are working diligently with our partners to restore core services. Then came the unscripted part, voice cracking. She thinks she can destroy everything we built, but she was never the foundation, just a tool. Within 5 minutes, that clip was on Twitter. Sophie replied under it with one word, wrench. The replies came fast. No system collapses like this without her being the system. If she's just a wrench, why are you bleeding, bro? Put respect on the name. Ashwick is coming. He didn't know it yet, but his meltdown was my best PR campaign. Every sentence he spewed tightened the noose on his own legacy, proving what I'd known all along. You don't fire the architect and then look surprised when the building drops on your head. That evening, the Department of Justice called. Not with threats, with questions. The man's voice was crisp, deliberate, no introduction needed. We're aware of a potential misclassification of intellectual property. Can you confirm the system architecture was solely your design? Every line, I told him. And every bypass. Which is why your subpoena will bounce off their legal department like a tennis ball in a hurricane. He went quiet. I heard a lighter flick. Would you be open to consulting? he asked. I smiled, not from arrogance but because I felt the shift. For 2 decades I'd built fortresses for men. Now I was being asked how to dismantle theirs. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. Just, send your questions in writing. My counsel prefers it that way. I hung up and Sophie messaged me. He tried to rehire your whole team. Offered double. No takers. Of course not, they'd seen too much. Not just Eddie's chaos but me, staying past midnight, salvaging failed deployments, shielding interns from HR, writing back-end code at 4 a.m. They didn't follow because I paid more. They followed because I broke first, then rebuilt sharper. The next morning, the board filed for emergency mediation. Their press release blamed a rogue former employee for disrupting core systems beyond contractual norms, which was just a polite way of saying, we handed her the matches and she lit the city. They never said my name, because saying it would have been admitting they'd chosen the wrong person to fear. But the spiral came anyway. First, the leak, screenshots of internal memos exposing Eddie's Q3 plan to cut all non-essential female leadership over 45, dressed up in corporate poetry as sunsetting legacy voices. That phrase became a bonfire, and #legacy voices quietly burned across the feeds for 2 straight days. I didn't write the op-ed that followed. An ex-DevOps contractor did, telling the world how I'd once rerouted a D2S attack during my father's funeral, one hand on my laptop, the other holding my son. People called it myth. It wasn't. I hadn't cried, hadn't eaten, hadn't told a soul. Just fixed what no one else could. Now the story was out and Eddie? Gone. 2 days later, the company posted that the COO was taking an indefinite leave of absence. Not a resignation. Just absence. That same hour, Sophie sent me a photo of his brass nameplate. Cracked, coffee-stained, tossed in a bin with the caption, "He left before the cleaner came." I didn't reply. I was too busy watching Ironclad Networks onboard its 5th client in 12 hours. Tokyo's 7-figure retainer already cleared. No office. No overhead. No permission. Just me. An empire they never saw coming because it didn't wear a suit, or smile for meetings or play nice at brunches. It wore scars, silence, and code. The press came hunting at 3:13 a.m. Wired, Forbes, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, all asking for my side of the story. There was no side. Just truth and the wreckage it left behind. Eddie's empire didn't go out in flames. It rotted in place, starved of belief. Earnings calls postponed, stock frozen then tanked, clients fleeing like rats off a drowning spreadsheet. Ashwick didn't advertise, recruit, or pitch. We just answered the phone because reputation moves faster than Nexarentis, and mine no longer hid in footnotes. It rang in every encrypted crash report they couldn't solve, in every contract that came back with my signature instead of theirs, in every quiet we'd rather follow her. I offered Sophie the chance to go public, CTO title, full rights. She refused. Mystery sells better, she said. Smart girl. Tokyo sent engraved pins. Zoe sent a wine so old the cork crumbled. Washington sent nothing, until a cybersalience contract arrived. No bids, just coordinates, budget, and an NDA thicker than a Russian novel. We took it. And then one morning my son called from base video chat. Mom, he said. You're trending again. I laughed, finally cool? He shook his head. Nah. Just terrifying. We talked about nothing and everything. He asked if I was happy. I told him I didn't know yet, but I wasn't angry anymore, and that was new. That was enough. When we hung up, I stepped onto the rooftop deck of the brownstone I just bought outright. No mortgage. No strings. Just mine. The wind off the city felt like applause without hands. Down below the world churned, lawsuits, reinventions, pivots. Eddie resurfaced eventually, new title, new suit, new city. But the stain followed. Because while he could bury scandals under NDAs and hush money, he could never bury the truth that haunted him. He wasn't outmaneuvered by a rival. He was outlived by the redundant one. And I didn't just walk away with revenge. I walked away with the blueprint, the keys, the kingdom, and no intention of letting anyone else hold the gate again.